Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session of Shaping School Library Collections to Inspire Engagement. I'm Mona Kerby, and I'm Professor and Coordinator of School Librarianship at McDaniel College in Maryland, but I'm a longtime Texan. I've been active in TLA. I did my librarianship and my teaching career in Arlington ISD. I've got two ways that you can get in touch with me because I hope we continue this conversation after this session. rkerby@mcdaniel.edu, R stands for Ramona, and monakerby.com. Now I've got my timer set and it's 23 minutes, so I'm going to be talking, I hope, Maryland fast to get through this. This is my mission, my goal in life, not only for you, but for every student I teach, and that is to speak short and blunt, to write succinctly, and to help you improve the quality of school libraries, to cut through the chase, save you some time, and to inspire you to get to work. Now, I've got a book published by ALA that is short and sweet. I'm grateful they let me do that. It cuts to the chase. It gives you worksheets. It gives you charts to figure out what to do. I don't care if you buy it, borrow it. That's just fine. But I just wanted you to know that if you do choose to purchase it, ALA is giving you a $5 discount at their ALA online store. So use that coupon MKTL21. And it expires at the end of May. Okay, these are our objectives for this session, and these are objectives when you get back to the building. Got them? Now, I've got 22 minutes. So in 22 minutes, when I turn it over for our discussion, I want you to be thinking of questions that you want to ask. So do they have something to do with our objectives? Do they have something to do with the questions that you see on the screen? Please jot down things. The most important part of this session is going to be me listening to you. Let's just go ahead and begin with our AASL national standards. Our goal, 3 things. We're supposed to support diverse learners. We better be having high quality books on those shelves, and we better have sufficient breadth. That's all they're saying. AASL doesn't give you numbers of recommendations. That's it. But what you see on that screen, you better be able to parse out and show that you've done so by using data. One of the first things that would be helpful for you to do is an analysis of your learners. And you're going to use information such as the census analysis information that talks about your community, what kinds of jobs they have, what kinds of socioeconomic area there. You're going to be using school information. You also ought to be using your own brain. Talk to the teachers, talk to parents, find out exactly what those learners, who they are, and what they need. What are they going to be when they grow up? What kinds of materials do they need now to help? And this analysis is not a complete analysis that my grad students do, but I wanted to show you the outcome of what Bridget Friedman did. Another thing that is an aha for me was this task of making my students do a one-page curriculum chart. You're going to find, and it's no surprise, that education curriculum guides are full of jargon. They're confusing, they're overwhelming, and they drive me nuts. So what I do is have my students succinctly gel everything down to one page. And the purposes, two purposes. One, that way you can use a chart to evaluate your collection. So for example, if kindergarten studies in science frogs and seasons and temperatures and butterflies, then you go to those shelves and you check to see, do you have enough on those subjects? And two, are they at the right grade level? You might have frogs, but it might be written at the 4th grade level. So not only is it a buying chart for you and just something to keep in your brain once you make it, but it's also going to be able to be shared with teachers and with parents. Put that thing on your school library website. Another aha I'm discovering is that my librarians don't select quality review books. Now, in the old days, I read those journals that you see on the screen. If you don't have time to read journals anymore, you're not reading journals anymore, then the solution is simple. You just set your vendor settings, be it Follett Tidal Wave or Mackin or anything else, to only pull up books that have multiple positive reviews. Why? I'll tell you why. If you were to evaluate your collection and you did a sample study, say of 100 titles, and you compared those titles to book list, which constitutes a recommendation for purchase, or if you did it to Wilson's, which is the same way, I have never found a school that had a higher match than 20%. Promise. So if those collections aren't good, I would think at least 50% ought to be your minimum number to see about the quality of your collection. Now again, there is wording from our AASL standards, and the key thought there is, okay, if your selection criteria tells you to be supporting diverse learners, then you ought to be able to evaluate your collection using those selection sources. In the coming slides, let me see how many minutes I have 16 minutes left. We're going to analyze the collection, including circulation numbers, and that is easy peasy in this day and age because you've got multiple options of reports with your Tidal Wave and with Mackin. If you don't have access to those, that's easy too. Both of those companies they'll evaluate your collection and give you every report that you want. All you have to do is send them your MARC records. They promise not to reuse your MARC records. And then you've got the reports. It's kind of nice to have two comparisons. They make a difference when you're having decisions to make. And the other good thing about both companies within the last year, they've started offering analysis on the diversity of your collection. How could you not take advantage of that report? Now, let's touch a little bit on weeding and I'll be quiet just for a minute to let you read that. Check my time. Well, that's there for the purpose to make you laugh, but it also makes us laugh because it's a little close to home. Because one of the questions that always comes up when we have this discussion about weeding, and sometimes we might make fun of pack rats, but the very real issue they have is, okay, so I get rid of all those old materials and then I don't have anything left. Let's talk about that. So there's that first bullet. You're going to keep it because you don't know when you can get to replace it. And if you want to have a discussion on this, I just want to remind us that school libraries are not historical collections. That's the purpose of university libraries, of museum libraries. We're not there to keep a history of children's lit, although we like that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Crew guidelines. Now, I hope you all know that the last Crew handbook was updated by TLA long-term member Jeanette Larson, and it's available free on the internet from the Texas State Library. What my mission is to simplify it. That handbook I enjoyed reading it. It's 108 pages long. So what I did was made up a one-page guideline of what you needed to do to weed a school library collection. And there's a musty formula that's a part of Crew guidelines that you will use. And I'll show you that formula. The first figure is the age of the item. Now, you can decide on that age for yourself. There is no law to that, but I've made you up a chart of recommendations of how old you might want to keep the picture books, or how old you might want to keep science books for you to see. The second figure has to do with how often it's checked out. And then the third component is all that musty stuff. It has to do with the quality. Is the information correct? Is it a science book that's 20 years old about atomic energy? So those will help. This is an old weeding schedule that we used in Arlington ISD. You don't have to weed the entire collection every single year. Do it on a rotating schedule so that you're looking at, maybe every 3 to 5 years you're repeating things. There are some sections you want to do more often, and that includes you want to look at science pretty frequently to make certain that it's current. I would say that on average, in a preprint and not in a pandemic year, because that's going to open up a whole other topic, you will typically lose about 200 books just through wearing out and being lost. And you might, once your library is in shape, you might weed about 400 to 500 books a year. That's if the collection is in pretty good shape. You might, if you're coming into that library and hadn't been weeded in a while, you might have to weed the entire collection and get rid of thousands of books. There is my suggestion on the percentage of items you should have in each category, and how old those books should be. So if you look, maybe easy fiction should not be much older than 11 years. Of course, this is a recommendation. It was based on charts, old charts from curriculum development textbooks. It was based on Follett's guidelines, on Mackin's guidelines, and that gives you just a touchstone to see what you think, how you want to mold the materials. Now, one of the worksheets that I've got, and let me check while you're reading that column, let me see how many minutes I have left. 9 minutes. When you get down to the point of evaluating the collection, there are a number of ways you can do it by curriculum. Over there on the first column, you could perhaps do it first by science. You're going to evaluate all the science books for all the grades in your building. So you might put down the topics that you discovered from your curriculum chart, and then list the associate Dewey numbers. Then be sure you put the grade level. It won't matter so much, of course, in high school, but elementary, that makes a big difference. If you're studying butterflies, you want to be certain that you're at the correct reading level. The level of support comes from your brain, not from any reports that your circulation vendor does. You need to go ask that teacher, just do you need 2 or 3 titles on the shelf because you're going to be talking about it briefly and that's all you want? Are you going to do a research project on frogs? Do you need a bunch of resources? Just figure out the level of support needed. Then go ahead and copy down the number of items you've got on the shelves. Give yourself a copyright year, and then we'll talk. We talk more about this in the book, but you want to see how many of those titles are positively reviewed. And the easiest way is to get a sample size and to check them by book list. And then you decide the number of items to read. You decide it. And the last column is something that beginning library students have trouble with. Sometimes they will decide to evaluate the science section, and if they read 100 books because their books are averaging 20 years old, then I will have them say, well, I'm going to buy 100 new books in science. No, you're not, because 100 highly recommended science books aren't published in any given year. It's going to take you 3 to 4 years to build up that science section. You don't want to be purchasing 5-year-old titles. You just got rid of old titles. So things to ponder when you're doing this. I so hope that you have a colleague to discuss these things with, because when it gets to this point, there are no right and wrong answers. You have to just keep pondering to figure out what will work in your building. Now, another thing that's very helpful is in Follett and Mackin, you can get such a chart of the first columns where you can see the percentages, the average age, the circulation. But then the last column, that's a decision that calls for your judgment. Do you think you've got too many, too little? Is it too old, too new? Are the books not being checked out? Does that section need work? That becomes your plan. Excuse me. Now, I just wanted to show you a chart from a high school before the pandemic. And there are some things that I want you to notice. What concerned me when I looked at this chart when a student submitted it? What concerns you? We have 4 minutes left. I think we're going to make it. Well, I'll tell you what concerns me was this high school library still has 454 books in reference. She doesn't need that many books because databases have replaced it. The average age of those reference books are 24 years old. And look at the circulation, 9. She's running a high school library and she's got science books that are 21 years old, history books that are 22 years old, and I want you to look at her total circulation for the entire year. She only checked out 2,600 books. If I were a school library supervisor, I wouldn't give money to high school librarians unless I saw heavy circulation. If you're running an elementary school library, there are 38 weeks in a school year. Every child in that building, on average, should be checking out 60 books a year. I don't want any of those rules like bookers and lookers that if you have an overdue book, you can't check out a book and you're just a looker. Now, we're not talking about a pandemic year, but keep that in mind. The other things that I think you ought to be aware of once you start doing this is that you want access to your database circulation records, and Gale is getting better at that. They're able to provide that just within the last couple of years. You might want to discuss with your colleagues how many graphic novels and how many ebooks do you want on the shelf, and do you even need as many science and history books as you had in the past? And one more thing, once you start getting into the weeds about this, you're going to find your MARC records are a mess and you're going to have to clean them up, and nobody will ever know it except you. But you need to do that. Now, the whole purpose of this session was how do you showcase the collection, but you can't be showcasing something that's not very good. So this needs an entire period for you to discuss with your local colleagues how you're going to do that. Start with the AASL toolkit. They've got an advocacy toolkit with lots of suggestions. It's going to demand that you do professional development opportunities for the teachers. It's going to demand that you do some publication. That could be audio, that could be video. It's going to mean that you need some updating on your digital formatting skills. Maybe you'll share some of the things that you've done to showcase the collection in your district. And we're just about right on time, 23 seconds. In closing, I just want to remind us that your goal is to figure out who exactly are your learners and make a succinct description for yourself and a place to share them. Get yourself a curriculum chart, adjust those vendor settings, and start improving that collection. Meet with colleagues. You need to brainstorm. I've got on this slide my contact information, that coupon, and in just a minute I'll stop it and then we'll go online to have a discussion. Looking forward to it all.